To assign a variable, what do you need to understand before you assign a variable? What you are trying to find. You answer the question, what am I trying to find? So for this one, I can skip over the first sentence. Find the volume of the box. So how about we say V equals volume of box. I haven't even read the other part of the question, but I've labeled the variable I want. The volume of a rectangular box of a given height is proportional to its width and length. The volume of a rectangular box of a given height. So what kind, is this a two-dimensional box or a three-dimensional box?
Three-dimensional box.
Yeah, it has length, width, and what? Height. And it also says volume, so you know this. So you have, what do you want? Length. Let's call this length. Let's call this width, and let's call that height. You with me so far? It says a box with width 2 and length 4. So width 2 and length equals 4. Has a volume of 12. It says find V when the box has the same height, when h equals the same height, and that is 3 feet wide and 5 feet long. 3 feet wide and 5 feet long. Have I done any math yet? No, I have not. So here's the first math you are going to do. You know this is true, correct? So what can you find based on that information? You can find the height. So you know that 12 is equal to what? Raise your hand. I will call on you. We need this today. Nick. H times
4
times 2. Exactly. So you know that 12 is equal to 8h. So what does h equal? 12 over 8, which is 3 over 2. So what does it say, the second part here? Find W when what? So h in this case is going to be what? 3 over 2. So we can find the new volume is going to be equal to 3 over 2 times what? 3 times 5. So you're going to end up with 3 times 3 times 5 over 2, which is what? 45 over 2. And what's the units? Does it give units on this? Yeah, feet. Feet what? Cubed. One key difference between this class and physics, as long as you write the units in at the end, you're okay. I'm not going to require you to do units the entire way through, but you need to have them at the end. Volume, and if the length, width, and height are in feet, the volume has to be in cubic feet. Does this make sense, everybody?
Yes.
Okay, good. Inversely as x. Which one is it, Hannah? It is C. Let's just disassemble why it's C. Which one is this? What kind of variation is that? That's direct, right? What's this one? Anybody know what B is? Here, I'll rewrite it for you. Y equals 1/3 x. That's the same thing, right? What is that? That is direct variation. Can the k value be less than 1? Absolutely. Because what is direct variation? Y equals what? Kx. Can k be less than 1? Yes. And what about this one? Direct squared, remember? Direct as x squared. So this is direct, direct, and direct as x squared. This one, though, is, what is the formula for inverse? Or what's the general form for inverse? Yeah, Alex.
Y equals
K over x. Exactly. It has to be a constant over x. Does it fit? Yes. So this one is inversely. Good. Is this an equation or an expression? This is an equation, right? So what's the first thing you should do? Domain. Find the domain. Find the domain. So to find the domain of this, what might you need to do first? Yeah, so you get 2 over k minus 1 minus 4k plus 1 over what? Can someone tell me what goes here? Aubrey, what goes in the denominator here? This one. What does that factor to? Yep. Excellent. Equals, can't factor anything over here. Can someone raise their hand and tell me what the domain is going to be? X such that x can't be what? What are the two values x can't be? Milo. Yeah, -1 and +1, exactly. So the domain is everything besides those things. You can't say the domain is -1, right? No, I asked you. You answered as I asked. I'm just emphasizing it so that when if I ask you what is the domain, you have to write this. You can't write -1 and 1. That's like writing what's your favorite color and you saying aura and like leaving off the other part of it, orange. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's half the answer. Also, actually, it's the equivalent of saying, like, if your favorite color is orange, and you answering everything except for orange. It's like the opposite. It's actually the opposite. So at this point, what do you multiply by? You do not multiply by a form of 1. We just did this an hour ago, Mar. What do you multiply, everybody? You multiply everything by the LCD. Multiply by LCD. What is the LCD on this one? K plus 1 times K minus 1. So you multiply all of these things right here. So you take this thing right here. Take all of these things right here. Oop, moved around a little too much there. Take this. I'm going to move it over so we have some space. And take this so we have some space like that. And what do we multiply by? K plus 1 times K minus 1 over 1. K plus 1 times K minus 1 over 1. And what over here? K plus 1 times K minus 1 all over 1. So why did I do that? Because now do a lot of things cancel? Yeah. Let's do some canceling here. This cancels there, right? What cancels? Oh, all of this cancels, right? What cancels over here? So what are we left with now? Yeah, we have the 2. So we have 2 times minus what? In parentheses, 4k plus 1, right? Minus, equal, sorry, negative 1 times what? Is it really easy to miss a negative sign here and then have everything go badly? Yeah. So now at this point, are you home free? Yeah, what's up, Nick? What's up? Because it's right there. It didn't cancel with anything.
I thought it was just 2k plus 1. 4k plus 1.
No, it's 4k plus 1, see? 4k plus 1. 4k plus 1, 4k plus 1, 4k plus 1. Yep. So now you just have to be careful. You end up with 2k plus 2 minus 4k minus 4 is equal to negative k minus 1. How many k's do I have on the left-hand side?
Why do you have a 4k minus 1?
Plus.
No.
Why? Because I distributed the negative sign right here? You're absolutely correct. Very, very good catch. Minus 1. Correct. How many k's do I have on the left? Negative 2. Thank you, Zoya. Negative 2k plus what on the left? Plus 1 is equal to negative k plus 1. Oh, these cancel, right? So what are you left with? Negative 2k equals what? What's your only answer to this? K equals what? There's only one possible answer, kids. No. We can add this to the other side if we wanted to. So what would you get? Negative k is equal to what? 0. So what does k equal? Is that a valid answer? Why not? Sure. Is it in the domain?
No. Yes.
Yes, it is. It is, in fact, in the domain. We're okay with that, right? So what's the last thing you could do? Because, you might be a little wary. You're like, maybe you're not quite sure. What's the last thing you can do if you have time? What? If you check your answer, all you're doing is you're taking it, plugging in 0, and seeing if it's a true statement. You work on each side separately. Let's check it. Maybe we did make a mistake, but let's find out. So if we plug in 0, what do you end up with? 2 over minus 1 over what? 1 over what? Negative 1. And what do you end up with on the other side? Negative 1 over 1. So you end up with negative 2 plus what? No. Plus, because it's negative and negative, plus 1. And what do you end up with over here? Negative 1. Oh, negative 1 and? Does it check? Did I get the same thing on both sides? Yes. So does k equal 0? Yep. What? 2 minus negative 1. What's 2 minus negative 1? Negative 2 plus 1. There you go. Good job.
Number 18.
Number 18? Sure. In this case, kids, it's nice to get a least common denominator, but do you absolutely have to have a least common denominator? As long as you make sure you simplify at the end, what's the easiest way to find a common denominator? Just multiply them. So our common denominator is going to be 5a plus 10 times what? Because I'm trying to do it a long way, and then we'll do the short way, okay? So do you agree that that's a common denominator? Yes. Is there a different way to find a denominator? What could we do first? You could, if you wanted to, do it 6 over 5 times a plus 2 plus 7 over 6 times a plus 2. If you do this, what's your LCD here?
30.
30 times a plus 2. Either way, as long as you simplify at the end, which way do I really would like you to do if possible? Well, no, I really like you to do the second one if possible. That's just going to be cleaner overall. Now, is this an equation or an expression? Expression. So what are we trying to build? A common denominator so we can only multiply by forms of 1. There it is. So what do we multiply right here? What do we multiply by? 6 over 6. And what do we multiply over here? Because we need to make a 30, correct? So what does this become? 6 times 6 plus 7 times 5 all over what? 30 times. So that's going to be 36 plus 35 over 30 times a plus 2. What's that equal? 71 over 30 times. That would be the best, awesomest, most cool, wonderful answer.
So that's fine.
Upstream. And the question says she can go 6 miles upstream in the same time, in the same amount of time. So what do you know about the two times? They're equal. So if you know distance and rate, distance equals rate times time, correct? What does time equal? Distance over rate. So can you tell me what this is right there, Liv? 10 over 12 plus x. And what's this one? 6 over 12 minus x. And what do you know about the two times? They are equal. That is correct. So you know that 10 over 12 plus x is equal to 6 over 12 minus x. Is that something you guys are confident in your ability to solve? Yeah. Yes. There you go. I'm not going to finish it, but that's how you would start it. The second one, the only difference between the first and the second one, there's two differences. What's the first difference? I didn't give you a chart. So what do you need to make? A table. So you have distance, rate, and time. On his drive from Montpelier, Vermont to Columbia, South Carolina, Victor Samuels averaged 51 miles per hour. If he'd be able to drive 60, he would have reached his destination 3 hours earlier. So we have two trips. So there's trip 1 and there's trip 2. What's the distance in each case? So which is D and D. What's the rate when he did for trip 1? 51. What's the rate when he did trip 2? 60. So let's pause here. If I just gave you that table and no other information, what's the time for trip 1? D over. And what's the time for trip 2? D over 60. Are the times the same? No, they are not. What's the relationship between the times? This one is 3 hours less, right? So if you wanted to make them equal, you know that D over 51 is equal to what? D over 60 what? This is 3 hours less than the other one. So if you have $3 less than me, what do I have to do to the amount of money you have? Add 3. Add 3. You know this. This is just what the question tells you. D over 60 is 3 hours less than D over 51. So how do you make them equal? 7 is 3 less than 10. So what do you have to do to 10 to make it? What do you have to do to 7 to make it 10? Add 3. So you generate this equation right here. And what can you solve for? D. Are you confident in your ability to solve for D? Do that for me right now. Do that for me. It is 3 hours less than the other one. It is 3 hours less. So if it takes you 7 hours to make a trip and it takes me 10 hours to make a trip, so if we want to set them equal, if we want to make it, which we do, because why do we need that? Because we want to write a what? An equation and solve the equation. Got it now? Does D equal? Who has an answer for me? Can someone tell me what I need to do first to solve this if I don't have an immediate answer? It seems like there's some.
Didn't you have to find the LCD on the left side, the right side?
You need to find the LCD because, well, yes, that's one way to do it. Sure. So can someone just tell me what the answer is? We can just go to the answer. Anybody have the answer?
Oh, yeah.
What do you have, Summer? 3. D equals 3? No. That is the distance is 3. No. Okay. Can someone tell me how to do this? Because this should be automatic. We've done things way harder than this one. You're overthinking. What should I multiply everything by? 51 times 60. So that's D over 51 times 51 times 60 equals D over 60 times 51 times 60 plus 3 times 51 times what? We just did this earlier. So what cancels? The 51. What cancels here? The 60. So you end up with 60D equals 51D plus 3 times 50. This is why I gave you the calculator, right? Subtract, we get 9D equals this thing. So D is equal to 3 times 51 times 60 all over 9. Yeah, that right there is the only reason that you had needed a calculator for the quiz right there. That's it, right there. Anybody have it? 1,000 what? 20 miles. That is correct. That is variation. What's the equation? Kx. And then the other one is y equals kx to the n power, like varies directly as x is squared. What about inverse, Mar?
Isn't y equals k over x?
Correct. And what's the general version is k over x to the n power. So I could say y varies as x to the third power. That would be the k over x to the third. Now there is a last kind of variation. Did anybody look it up? Or did anybody run into it? Anybody see it? There's a third name for it. Anybody have it? Jointly. It's called joint variation. And joint variation looks like this. Y equals kxz. So k is a constant. K is a constant. So how many variables do you see here? If k is a constant, how many variables are there? 3. Nothing. It's very similar to direct variation, except that there are 2 variables on the right side. That's it. It's the same exact type of work. We actually did one with joint variation already. What was the first question we did in class today? Do you remember that box problem? You see this formula right here? What does volume equal?
Oh.
If h is constant, remember h stayed the same? If h is constant, we have volume equals a constant times width and length. Is that joint variation? Yes. That is joint variation. That is joint variation. What?
The k stays constant in joint variation?
Yes, the case. This is something that's kind of annoying in the world of math. You just have to get used to it. Sometimes they don't really explain to well which ones are constants and which ones aren't, right? Because if I just showed you y equals kxz and you had no experience with this, and I said, how many variables do you see? You would say 4, right? K is a constant. The last one for joint variation, there's going to be, I think they call it joint inverse variation, but you really don't have to worry about it. I'm not going to ask you about it tomorrow. You might get a small question on this right here because it's really not that bad. It's really not that bad. The main thing you need to focus on, make sure you have experience practicing or you've practiced just about everything from the chapter review. I think the test, again, is very fair. You just need to be able to do a little bit of everything. It doesn't focus on any one thing out of proportion. So simplifying, factoring, finding the domain, just the entire list of things from chapter 7. You will do totally fine if you just don't make small mistakes. And I think the length is very fair. Okay. What kind of fraction is that?
Complex.
Complex fraction. You can either, so what do you want to do first? Someone help me.
No, well,
You could, but I would let's flatten it. You could work on the top and the bottom separately, or you can multiply. You have 2 choices. Work on the top and bottom separately, or multiply by an LCD. What do you want to do?
LCD.
I like the LCD. I like multiplying by LCD because here's the deal. What's the LCD up here?
PQ.
It's PQ, right? Let's write it as QP. What's the LCD down here? It's the same thing. So take a look at this, everybody. Stop writing, Mark. Please stop writing. You have 3 over P minus 2 over Q all over 9Q squared minus 4P squared all over QP. If I multiply the top and the bottom by QP, if I multiply everything by QP, look what happens. What happens when you multiply 3P times QP? What do you end up with?
3Q.
3Q minus 2 what? P. And then what cancels on the bottom? The QP's cancel, right? What are you left with? There's going to be simplifying, correct? 9Q squared minus 4P squared. Ah! What can you do on the bottom? What is that? That is the difference of what? Yes?
For the 9Q squared.
Yep.
Wouldn't it be 9Q?
No, this cancels with this. So what does this turn into? 3Q minus 2P times 3Q plus 2P. Oh, look, it's gone. So what are you left with? 1 over? That is the smoothest way I know of to do it. There's other methods. You can simplify first. There's a help session tomorrow at 8 o'clock. If you want to come to that, please do. Otherwise, you have homework listed and a test tomorrow.